Hello, ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys. You are now entering Season 2 of the Swan Hockey Podcast. Swan Hockey is flying around the junior hockey world one episode at a time. You'll experience things dreams are made of, as well as things of terrible nightmares. Strap in, hold on, and enjoy the ride. And now, Swan Hockey.
All right, so draft day, what do you got?
Well, what don't I have, Swanee? The amount of phone calls, it's been crazy. I think I was on the phone till like 1:30 in the morning, and everyone, from advisors to schools to other teams would take this kid, take this trade, I'm looking for this. So it's been very active, much more active than last year. I thought last year's draft was pretty quiet, to be honest.
Oh, really?
And, yeah, compared to this year, this year it just seems like there's a lot more people reaching out, a lot more trades of draft picks. And I think the pool of players is a little bit different too. Obviously with, the rule change,
sure.
It's definitely opening up, some different avenues. So we'll find out if that's good or if we feel that we're more handcuffed and maybe there's less players because there's more options out there. But on the same token, I feel like there may be kids interested, potentially leaving the BCHL because the top two, forwards decided to go to major junior, and it just changed the whole dynamic of their current team. And so maybe some of those Americans would look for an option, back in the States. So there's just a lot at play right now.
Yeah. And are you noticing any, is it changing the way, your approach to drafting, in terms of maybe drafting some guys that are major junior picks, but maybe lower end major junior picks that now maybe aren't going to make their major junior teams and whatnot, or even if there's any, any guys getting forced out of the USHL or whatnot. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out with the USHL, because I think you're going to have top end talent leaving the USHL, I believe, to go to major junior, but then is the USHL able to attract maybe some guys that are getting cut from major junior or whatnot?
Yeah. I mean, you've always had, the rule of number of 20-year-olds you can have in major junior. So there's always been guys that kind of swing in the draft on, a 20-year-old that maybe doesn't stick with his major junior team, and you can pick them up. I kind of went with that mentality, but from the younger side of things. So instead of going after the 05 that's, going to maybe be released from his Q team, or O or dub team, I went with the young guys that are drafted that maybe just aren't quite ready to be there this season. And so they need a year in junior hockey to prep to then go to the major junior level.
Yeah. And that's what I meant, in terms of guys that maybe normally would make their major junior team this year, but they're not going to. At least one team told me they're all about the 18 and 19-year-olds right now, that, it's going to push their fresh draft picks that normally would make the team. They're not going to, because they're picking up all these free agents out of, whether it's the USHL or the BCHL. And, just what I said before, I guess there wouldn't really be much trickle down from the USHL, because the USHL is probably going to lose more players than they're going to get from all this. There's just a lot of moving parts. And Bill Underwood and I spoke on the, on the first episode about everything, the dust is kind of settled now in terms of the new structure, the new backbone. So what is this season going to look like with the new structure? I think that there's still a lot of dust to settle on the other end of how everybody's reacting to it and how everybody's going to pivot and adjust, if they're going to pivot and adjust. But in terms of the new structure, the new backbone, this is kind of the first season where everything's settled.
Right. Yeah. No, there's a lot of change. And like I said, our focus is kind of more, try to get the guys that are drafted at those levels, but there is not an opportunity because of the influx of, the 18s and 19-year-olds that were playing in junior hockey already, that because of the rule change now are interested in going to major junior, as you said. Yeah. So I feel it's an opportunity to get some really high-end young kids. And I think that's twofold. One, it's great for the organization, to bring in a player that is going to play with you for a year, and then you help advance them to, the next level of junior hockey, a higher level. But it also, at the same time, because they're young, it helps bring in Division I schools. they're in the age range that the Division I schools are really tracking right now. And so it's good for the organization. It's good for the individual players on our team to get more eyeballs on them from the higher level colleges. So for us, that's kind of the direction that we're pushing. And you can see from, the first ever futures draft for the NA yesterday, every team got 2 selections of 09 birth years. And for us, we selected a forward, we selected a goalie. Both are major junior drafted, one in the Quebec League by Baie-Comeau and one in the OHL by Barrie. And, both were drafted in the 4th round.
Oh, wow.
So it's a pretty higher pick, both Americans. And, they're going to go to camp. Obviously, if they make the team and have a role, and can play the whole season at the major junior level, they're going to do that. But if there's a conversation where they need some more development and maybe just a year away for all the reasons we just spoke about, I hope that we're kind of the landing spot for them and can help them with that year of development and help them, the following year get to that level. I said, obviously, they're going to get the college looks because even though they're going major junior, they still can play college hockey now with the rule change. So it's kind of, the best of both worlds, get your developmental year to get up to major junior, but also be seen by all the colleges, in the North American League, which is heavily scouted. And obviously our location in New Hampshire, you take an hour ride, you're going to hit 17 schools, so we're kind of in the hub of it. So it gets eyeballs on them from the colleges before hopefully the following year, for example, they go to major junior.
Yeah, and I like the approach that you guys are taking, and this is going to be the cool part to see how everybody's pivoting and adjusting and whatnot. But I like the approach that you guys are taking because I think the futures draft for the North American League still needs to be ironed out. I think for most guys, I really don't think it's going to amount to much. I don't think it's there yet, but I think the approach you're taking makes a lot of sense, and I could see your approach working. I almost feel like that's what it has to be, like in terms of like legitimately building a prospect and moving a player on and player development, whatnot. I think a lot of teams, they're using those picks as to support their youth program or favors or whatnot. Like I think there's a lot that has to be ironed out, and I think that it's going to be almost like beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Like it's going to be like what you, or I don't know if that's the right terminology, but like it's going to be what you make of it, right? I think that the 09s that were drafted, I think you're going to see a very different situation and a very different experience from program to program. But I like what you guys are doing. I think like obviously it makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, I agree with you that if you watched the draft yesterday, the futures draft, you could definitely see that there was, difference in what direction teams were taking with those 09 picks. You're spot on. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. I do think depending on your market, depending on kind of your business model and your ownership group, how you operate as an organization. Are you a developmental program? Are you win-win-win at all costs, ticket sales, need to put butts in the seats type of environment? Not that there's a right or wrong with either of those. It's just what is your market and what is your business model. And, for us, obviously we want to be highly competitive and we want to win, but we're super focused on understanding that junior hockey is a platform for development to get to the next level, the collegiate level ultimately. And I think, we have a nice blend of making decisions for competitive reasons to purely win, but at the same time, take a lot of pride in bringing the younger generation of players and helping them advance to the next level.
Yeah. And I think just like we talk about, for the players, like it's important, like, for the organizations to kind of find the identity and run with it. So I think that's very important. And obviously, so you guys are going younger then, from what it sounds like would you say that you guys are going to go, like the plan is to go younger in general? Because here's the other thing, like what about that whole group of players that's like right on the bubble of USHL that typically in years past, they weren't going to make the USHL. They're going to play in the NA, but now some of those older guys this year, they very well could make the USHL because again, I think, I anticipate that the USHL is going to lose a good amount of players to the CHL. Yeah,
no, absolutely. I don't think we're definitely not going to go an entire team of, all young guys. I want to have, a balance. Honestly, if you could set it up like college where you have class right? You have like 5 seniors, 5 juniors, 5 sophomores, 5 freshmen. And then, each year you're kind of bringing that next group of 5 guys. Ultimately, that would be, the position I would like to get to. I think this year we have some returning 20-year-olds, not a ton, but we do have 5. And then we have, a bulk of 06, 07s. It's probably 50% of the team, 25% 05s, and then 25% I'm hoping to have young 08. Young, for people that ask, like, what is young?
Yeah.
I'm talking like 08s, technically 09s is the first year you could be in. If someone's of that level and can handle it, 100%, I would take them. The age doesn't really matter to me in the sense of if 2 players are the same level of player, I don't mind going with the younger guy because he has more of a runway.
Sure. So the fun stuff, what's your biggest needs for the draft today? What are you going after?
Well, we definitely forwards in the first half of the draft. So we have 11 picks right now. We graduated some big players, from our roster. Scoring wise, Ollie Janess is going to Air Force next year, led the entire league in goals. He had 41 goals. So that's a lot of goals, to replace. And then Kim Hilmerson, from Sweden, he had 20, 23, 24 goals. So between those 2 guys, you're looking at 65 goals. And so, that's rare. You're not going to have that every season. And so what our staff has, discussed is instead of looking to get 2 guys to replace them, 65 goals, we need to go after 5 guys that are going to score 15 goals. We want to spread out, the scoring a little bit more instead of just being like top line heavy from production and have some good secondary scoring. Equally on the back end, we lost 2 defenders that are, graduating to go to college, and Tommy McDonough had 53 points on the back end. Damon Bossy had 40 points on the back end. So that's 2, very offensive defensemen. So replacing that is definitely a focus, but not necessarily that we need 2. Like 1 offensive defenseman is what we feel we're bringing in. And then we have a little bit more of a focus on big, hard, heavy, mobile defensemen. We scored a lot of goals last year. Pretty sure we were in the top 10 in the whole league. We scored the most power play goals in the whole league last year. And so we scored a lot, but we also gave up the equal amount of goals. So we were even, so we're trying to put ourselves in a position where, obviously we're still focused on creating offense, being creative and playing, an offensive style and mindset and looking to create and play with the puck. But we have a big emphasis on, tightening up on the back end, this year with maybe more defensive D than offensive D.
Are you on your game? Big draft day, big chess match with the organizations and the coaches and.
Yeah,
Are you going on the offense?
We've made a couple trades. Where it stands right now, we picked first round, second round, and then not again until the 5th round. And originally we were 1 and 5. So I did make a trade to pick up a second round pick because I feel, we have to hit on 2 forwards. So I wanted to be in the 1st and 2nd round. So that kind of worked out where I was able to acquire, a second round pick. So 2 forwards is most likely what we're going after, with the 1st and 2nd pick. And then about 100 picks go by and we get to pick again. So the stress of the draft day for us currently is those 100 picks. Because obviously we have our list, layers of guys like, oh, we picked this guy next, but if he's selected, we'll go to this guy. And, 100 picks. What if all 100 picks are on our list? You know what I mean?
You resign. And in the 5th round, Cam Robichaud resigns.
It's a lot of picks. So that's kind of those rounds 3, 4, and into the 5th, beginning of the 5th. Like, we don't have a pick, but I'm going to be watching real intently, because I'm curious, who's coming off my my list. But every year kind of prepare, do quite a bit of due diligence leading up to this.
Yeah, a lot of what ifs or
conversations with the players and a lot of video work, and we build a pretty extensive list. And I'll tell you what, at the end of the draft, I'm always like, whoa, we had way more players on our list than we needed.
Yeah.
Like last year, I think there was one kid selected that I had on my list that kind of made us have to pivot. But outside of that, we hit on all the guys that we wanted. And, in the past 2 years, I've been happy with our draft. I still think I got the steal of the draft in our first year with Tommy McDonough. I selected him in the 9th round, 259th overall. And, first has a rookie on the back end, puts up 33 points. This year puts up 53 points. Got all East Division first team.
Yeah,
so
that's awesome.
I talk to these kids, and I'm like, look, you want to be happy about being selected and being protected by a team. Don't get hung up on where it is, 1st round, 10th round. At the end of the day, like, our job as a staff is to acquire the players we want for the best deals, right? So if a kid's not going to get drafted by anyone else, but we're super high on him, maybe he's not known, maybe he's from away, maybe he's a different position than other teams need, why would we go use our 1st round pick if no one's going to draft him?
Yeah, like playing the chess match.
Right. Like I tell guys, like, hey, if you go to the cookout and the burger's free, you're going to take it for free. You're not going to pay for it.
Yeah.
Like, they're just handing it to you, take it.
Yeah, or if they left the cookies inside and didn't put them out with the rest of the desserts, you're going to go hit up the dessert table first, fight everybody else for the stuff, and you're going to go in and grab all the cookies you want by yourself.
Right. So it's like, I know that it's cool, for the kids to say, hey, I was selected in the 1st round and put it on their social media. I get that. I get the excitement about it. But ultimately, at the end of the day, the goal is to get protected. Because from there, all the protected players, your returners, your tenders, your draft picks, have to come and battle it out through the training camp process.
Well, and you're on the list, right? Like, you're on the team till you're not. Like, once you're drafted, you're part of the protected list. You're on the team till you're not.
Right. And you got to make sure you stay on that list, right? Like, the free agent that comes in and doesn't give a crap that you are drafted or tendered or a returner and just totally dominates you in your role, guess what? He's going to make the team.
Yeah.
So this is the first, yes, kind of check the box. Okay, I'm protected. But then you need to come show the goods. Well,
you got to bring that consistency, right? Like, obviously there's something that caught your eye to draft a player. Now the next part of that, just again, like what every coach wants, consistency. You want to see that consistent performance. Like, you're drafting the player for a reason. You're expecting those reasons to show up with the player at camp.
Right. And these camp, at the end of the day, like, our training camp is 40 guys. So you're going to have a couple guys that we're looking at making decisions between that have a similar role.
Right.
Like, hey, we need a 3rd line center that we're looking to bring great details, a lot of energy, secondary scoring, and be a penalty killer. There may be 2 guys like that, and who's going to win that job during the camp process?
Yeah, and it's it's just so important for these guys to remember too, because like you said, like the draft is step 1, right? Or step 2 after the tenders. But it's not only just about making the team; it's just about everything coming through the program and graduating and going on to bigger and better things. Whether that's major, junior, or right to college, right? The idea is, okay, you're drafted. Well, now you work your ass off all summer, so you're ready to give the organization the best version of yourself that you can, so you can utilize the things that you're doing for the boys and the development, the exposure, the trying to push them through their journey. And I feel like some players may forget about that, like where it's like, okay, I made the team. Okay, great. That's you've accomplished essentially step 1. Now you got to go through the program and perform and dominate and move on. Spread your wings and move on to bigger and better things. Like, that's the goal of the program. So we're at the very beginning. Like, don't take the foot off the gas.
Right. Yeah, you can't say, oh, I've made it. Once you're drafted, I've arrived. It's great. I have the opportunity to prove myself now.
It's time for the Season Pass Point Unlock code for Episode 4. The Episode 4 Point Unlock code is Swan Hockey. Enter the code at www.swanhockey.io to receive your points. Season Pass is free to join. To join or to learn more, visit Swan Hockey Digital at www.swanhockey.io. And now, back to the show.
Right, and to keep furthering your career, like, everybody has bigger goals than, the North American League or the CHL or the USHL. Like, this is all, we want to keep going, like, live in a moment, focus on the here and now, but don't forget of what other goals you have for yourself and what it takes and what action needs to be performed to pursue those goals.
You mean the big picture, not just the Instagram post?
yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, no, so many players get caught up in that, unfortunately. So, but who's drafting for you guys today? Like, obviously, like, who else is going to be in there with you today?
So Trevor, our assistant coach, and our NA3 coach will be in there to help out as well, and Clint Kasavov, and then general manager Clint Edinger. So the four of us.
Oh, all right, cool. We should mess with Trevor. Like, you should call him right now and tell him that you just pulled off some, like, ridiculous trade, but, like, ridiculous, like I don't know, like, you trade, like, your 3 best players for, like, a 4th round pick or something. Tell him Clint traded him. Be like, yeah, I didn't even know you could do that. Clint traded your contract, your coaching contract.
Can you imagine that? How much of essentially, I guess, when you look at, like, the NHL, like, they kind of do that, right? Like, you see all these coaches in the league going to other teams year after year after year. But if it was like that in the junior level,
that would
like,
be
recruiters for, coaches. I mean, obviously there's talks that happen behind the scenes, but I mean, like, an aggressive, like, trading pool.
Yeah. Imagine if you told him, like, oh yeah, like, I don't know, I didn't even know you could do that, but yeah, Clint traded your contract. Like, I mean, it's only 6 months. Like, it's no big deal. Like you'll be right back in 6 months.
Don't worry about it. Enjoy the process.
Yeah. Enjoy the process. Oh, that'd be so funny. That'd be hilarious.
But yeah, we'll probably have to do some amount of pranking, something, and get us moving and chuckling today, because it can be a long day. Honestly. The draft can take 4 or 5 hours, and it's like mentally exhausting, right? Because you're just, like, almost having arguments with yourself in your head.
Yeah. Have you ever been part of a draft that it was just like, it just didn't go well? Just like all the picks you were going to take were, coming off the board. Maybe there was an owner that didn't want something done that you wanted to do. Like, have you ever been part of a draft that was just like, ugh, like that really, like, where you left the draft year and you were like, all right, I got a lot of work to do before this season starts because this did not go well?
No, honestly, I've been lucky, when I was in Maine, when I first started in the North American League, we hit on our draft picks, no issues, no hiccups. And then here in New Hampshire, as I said, like, the last 2 years has been, really good. So hopefully you didn't just jinx me and today is, like, the worst day ever.
No, I'm sure you're fine. How many picks do you have?
We have 11 picks.
Oh, wow.
But like I said, it's first round, second round, 2 in the 5th, and then 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So a bulk of them are in those.
Yeah, are going to be the later
rounds.
Yeah, the later rounds. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's where that, who's still available, did someone come off my list, scenarios will really start to come into play. Probably right around that 5th, 6th round, I would imagine. Yeah,
so you guys probably had to do a lot more work then in terms of trying to find, create a list of almost like needles in the haystack, right? Because, like, if you had a bunch of early round picks, you can kind of go after the players that everybody knows about, where there's a lot of value right now to finding the hidden gem.
Yeah, I'd say we have like an A, B, C, tier of list. And it doesn't necessarily mean like, hey, all these guys on the A list are the highest level of player. It is an A list of needs, a B list of needs,
right,
a C list of needs. You know, like right now you could be a really, really, really high-end guy, left winger, and I feel that we are all set on the left side. So you may be on the C list because we don't necessarily need a left winger. We're looking more for the right side. And so a right winger would be more on the A list for us at this time. So, you know, there's two ways of looking at it. Do you go for the next best available player, or do you go for what your needs are? And we're a little bit more need-based in our focus with this draft.
Yeah, and that's always like a sliding scale, right? Because like if there's a play, like, you know, because everybody has that plan of what they're going to, okay, do we want next best available or do we go needs-based? But then obviously there's times where it's like, all right, we're going to go needs-based, but then it's like, all right, how is this kid still available? Like, he's too good to pass up.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Swan Hockey Podcast. We remind you that season pass points are available to listeners. For more information, please visit www.swanhockey.io. Until next time.